and welcome to today's Adjust webinar. The topic of today is how to get high-quality users at scale and turn them into high-paying customers. My name is Fabian. I'm going to be the moderator of today's webinar and kind of guide you through the presentation. Today's topic is centered around games, how to do acquisition, and how to do it in a consistent and scalable way in order to find the users that actually matter. We're partnering up with Bidalgo and Chartboost today, and the webinar today will be presented by 3 people. I'll start from the left-hand side. So that's Simon. Simon is the head of solutions and integrations at Adjust. Also, we have Julia. She's the head of marketing US for Bidalgo. She has a performance marketing background for e-commerce and consumer apps, and will show you how to do scalable acquisition on Facebook, Instagram, and Pinterest. And last but not least, we also have Toya with us. She's the head of account management US for Chartboost. What are we going to talk about today? What are the skills and the best practices that you're going to leave this webinar with? So we're going to talk about how to do acquisition on Facebook and Instagram, how to do so in other apps and marketplaces and find the most valuable users for your game, and how do you actually set up attribution in order to measure your marketing activities and focus on the right users and see which channels drive the right ROI for you. Before we get started, just a few housekeeping rules for the webinar. So for the ones that have been with us on those webinars before, you know the drill. We'll record this. We'll send out the webinar afterwards to everybody who's signed up. We will also share the presentation with you afterwards, so don't worry, you don't have to take notes. You can totally focus on the presentation right now and ask questions. Questions can be asked in the GoToWebinar control panel. There's a question module, and you can pop in questions at any time. Best would be if you specify if those are for Adjust, Bidalgo, or Chartboost, and then it makes it really easy at the very end to assign them and answer those questions at the very end in the Q&A. The presentation will be about 40 minutes, and yeah, just relax and take in all those best practices that we have to share with you. Without further ado, I would like to pass it on to Julia from Bidalgo to kick it off and show us how acquisition works best on Facebook and Instagram.
Thank you, Fabian. Thank you so much. I'm so excited to share what any app developer and marketer must have set up for success on Facebook and Instagram. And then I will expand on the process of scaling growth, the methods and the strategy behind it, and finish with 3 advanced tactics which always deliver. So how do you start well? When you launch a new game or app, you know it is going to be a hard struggle to get to the level of top grossing apps, and sometimes it might take you months or years before you even get to play in the same universe of quality players. So some people start with manual work and using their own methods, and it is a hard way for them, and others going with plan B here, which is much easier because you have processes, tools, and strategies that work. And that's what we're going to show today. So it doesn't have to be that hard. So the first fundamental that we consider at Bidalgo, making sure that we follow plan B, we fish for quality users on Facebook and Instagram, and we start that with quality creative, because it is a driving force that grabs user attention in the universe of those high value potentials. At Bidalgo, the creative team does extensive research in the beginning, specific and native to each channel, comes up with 4 to 8 concepts. For example, you might have different characters in the game, you might have landscapes, any other specifics of the game, and it also creates different variations of color schemes and formatting iterations. We then mass test them against each other, analyze the front end and lower end performance, and choose only the best art to be in the fuller campaign. And here is an example why we look at the creative performance down the entire funnel, because we learned that high CTRs might not correlate to higher pay rates. So we test them for attention first, the click-through rates, but we also look at down the funnel, at the lower funnel effectiveness. Again, starting and focusing on quality process for creative, this is how it looks in its entirety. You see its iterative process. You test quality at massive scale, then you look at front and lower end performance, and then you create performance enhanced art as the final result. The second key principle that Bidalgo team follows is calculating precisely the LTV, the game we're taking on to scale UA for. Early on, app developers and marketers that are new to the industry fall into the trap of low CPI buying, and they lose the growth momentum. They do not understand how conservative set CPI impacts scaling into the downward direction versus up. And at some point, the volume available to you at such cost gets exhausted. So that way LTV is impacted negatively as well, and now you have to decrease your CPI even more, and then you get stuck. Quality users cost more than you play for you to play the universe of top grossing apps. So you have to raise your stakes to continue raking the volume. And knowing your CPI range for various kinds of users allows you to execute media buying at profit without losing volume. What Bidalgo team usually does, they gradually increase CPI as we buy more users. We set a volume and initial CPI targets and then iterate upwards. We use also power tools to do that. In our platform, we have different algorithms that allow us to do so fast and with precision. And they also allow us to learn more about each game specifics as we learn and as we scale the growth. And there are so many moving parts in each game. You cannot do that manually or just using human labor. You need to have smart systems. We also look for ROAS as the mid-term and timely feedback to buy media profitably. And as it's practiced week over week, we also increase LTV and ROAS. And at some point, we are able to start buying based on LTV because we know exactly what to pay for each specific cohort of the user. In other words, we use CPI for controlling returns and focus on acquiring quality users. As part of this process, we also use granular feedback on a cohort level each week, which is very timely. Acting on such temporarily cohorted data allows us to track monetization trends more accurately and respond with bid decisions based on the correlations of increasing or decreasing CPIs. Thus, instead of getting stuck on the low CPI, we evolve our bidding strategy as your game grows, and I'm going to show you how. We also always look at the full funnel analytics to make better media buying decisions. So you want to make sure you set attribution properly, and our folks with Adjust will show you how. This kind of data is passed through a mobile measurement partner like Adjust here into our Bidalgo platform, so that in your user acquisition reports, you see the full picture and you can make better decisions. In terms of quality, another starting point in relation to targeting is using your CRM data early on for custom audiences and localized so that you build on them as you scale and segment and experiment, and I will show you how as well. We usually start at week 1, and you will see how it progresses. So what do you need to do once you're ready to scale? How we do so fast and as effectively in this illustration of a client who spent from 0 to $500,000 within the first 6 months. Let me show you how. The key to scaling is testing and more testing and analyzing pockets of efficiency as you fish for quality users through this process. This is an example of a media buying plan that Bidalgo team develops. So let's zoom into each week and category and see how and where the magic happens. Within the placement, here is where we zoomed in. You start with all available placement combinations. Then on week 2, you move with most efficient placement. And then week 3, you choose only the placements with low CPIs and highest install volume. And on week 4, you optimize towards the placements with high install volume and high user values, such as pair rates. With bid types, you start the same circle. You start with optimized CPM for install, then expand to CPA, and here app event optimization. When week 3 comes, you go with the highest volume bid types and low CPIs, and by week 4, you will have more data to bid against volume and pair rate. So you'll have the right balance to work with. Targeting scales further as well. When you start in the beginning with your custom audiences and localized, as I mentioned before, and keyword targeting, then you expand to top age and gender combinations, and later you have more refined keywords, cluster countries, and precise interests. So you see that we balance breadth and precision here as we scale. So by week 4, we choose by the highest volume and pair rate again. And that's how the scale happens and how you manage quality. Creative also starts with all concepts and types, then moves to the best in terms of view through, install, and basically goes through the same process as I showed you in a graphic, but here you see that in a testing schedule format. So you look later at the lower end funnel, and that's what determines the best creative. Now, to do all of that work, we use our automation platform with a self-learning algorithm. Doing so manually on Power Editor or native platforms will not yield the same results. Here's the model of how Bidalgo algo works within the platform to aid the media buyer workflow. It takes your input of keywords, localized, business targets, creative, works with Facebook algorithm on delivery, and does long-term optimization for your budget and ROAS targets. And finally, it also allows you to buy what works and test it well. This way, you balance scaling growth fast, efficiently with algorithm, and still maintaining quality user acquisition that you set your mind to. Now, besides the bidding strategy and flow, we also automate repeated tasks, and we do so for productivity and speed. And it might sound boring, but actually it makes a big difference for our clients and for some of the customers that use SaaS platform. Over time, any seasoned campaign manager develops a library of best targeting and creatives to reuse for new campaigns. This library is constantly changing, though, because Facebook and Instagram are very fast in how they all those rules are changing, and so these variations might change. The variation in this quarter that worked might not work next month, and monitoring all this while doing the work with thousands of ads becomes challenging at scale, and manually is not possible. You can also write some rules internally, but even those could change. So with Bidalgo self-learning algorithm that manages this process, it's easy for the campaign because it uploads fresh top performing variations automatically at the end of each cycle, so that the campaign manager, the human, can focus on keeping the pipeline of creative and targeting fresh. And that's what they love to do the most. In fact, so much so that more than 50% of UA managers across our client portfolio run the majority of their campaigns on algo and leverage auto-upload. And here I'm just showing how the screenshot of auto uploads might look like. Now, as you do so, scaling your growth over a few months on Instagram and Facebook, you will be exposed to new ad formats. And since Facebook environment is constantly changing, if you get on this bandwagon early enough, if you adopt them immediately, you might generate marginal revenue before the competition because the audience is excited by the freshness of the ads, and sometimes the cost could be even less what you expect in other formats. And so here's an example with app event optimization. We had a number of clients participating, and within the first week, one of them had about 300 or 400K marginal revenue. That's a big chunk of cash just because they adopted this early. So you might want to do that. Now, what about the advanced tactics? What else you should be looking into? What else is worth exploring for your campaigns? Number one is day and week parting. We tried this tactic many times. As you learn about your users, how they behave, you will see predictable behavior, repeated behavior. And for example, here you might have casual gamers that do more gaming on the weekend or during the lunchtime when they're picking up food. If you have a shopping app, you might see different shopping activity for your users. They might be browsing more on weekends but buying faster on weekdays. The second one is geo expansion. It also delivers all the time. And here we have a good example from the client that recently found that outside US, they also have really good users from Sweden, France, and South Africa. And the third one is using hyperlocal targeting. And you might think that this is something that usually works for e-commerce with brick and mortar stores, but it works for gaming very well as well. Here we have a couple examples from one of our clients. They had a land-based asset, actual casino games, and we used Facebook and Instagram to target users who were in that vicinity. And you see that the CPI increased for those kind of users, but the return on advertising and doubled as well. And because of that, we were able to increase the quality by a factor of 3, and even the volume of consecutive campaigns for this client was increased in a bigger capacity. So that was very effective. To sum things up, focus on quality users early. Use algorithm to enhance your bidding for efficiency, speed, and scale. Automate workflows and keep on testing and hyper-segmenting, and always adopt new formats early to reap extra marginal revenue as you keep increasing your game LTV, your CPIs, and your volume of quality users. And on that, I'm going to give the floor to Toyer to get into the house of doing similar work on Chartboost.
Awesome. Thanks, Yulia. I really appreciate you going over all of those great keys. And now on to our section where we're looking at how to target and optimize at scale. So there are a few questions I'm going to be covering. First is, what do I need to know about the gaming audience? Second is, how and then should I think about awareness, looking at impressions versus quality and retention. So you're looking at CPI and LTV. And then lastly, we'll be asking the question and answering, how do I target and segment campaigns for the highest quality and relevant users? So great. With that, we're looking in the mobile gaming audience. So what is the mobile gaming audience and who is it made for? We're very familiar with the gamer market. It's not a quick primer. It's the global value. And so when you look at here, you have 99.6 billion spent on global games market. That is a huge number that we see. So what is that saying? It's saying that gaming isn't dead. Everyone's going to play a game. And if you take a look at our next stat, you'll see that 36.9 billion of that global games market is spent on mobile. What does that mean? There's a lot of opportunity for people to not only spend on games, but for your UA marketers to really acquire users, because there's a lot of money out there for everyone. Now, 62%, what does that mean? That's people who are smartphone users who own and install a game within a week. That's 62% of people who have and install a game. That is an amazing percentage. And like we said, when you think about the global games market and you look at the 99.6 billion and you look at how much money is spent on mobile with 30.9 billion, there are a lot of eyeballs out there for people. And then we take it a step further and look, and 90 million of those people play 10 hours per week. So if we go back to the recession in 2009 and you think about the economy and how things shifted, what didn't shift and what kind of grew were games. People are downloading apps and people are playing games. Why? Because they need an outlet. There's always going to be that need to kind of get away from your reality, kind of step away, and that's where games comes in. I mean, if you just take a look at the full-on landscape, and that's a great thing that, at Chartboost is, with all of that money that is floating out there, I mean, we have about 300,000 games that are on our network. We have 40 million monthly game sessions and 1 billion active users. So we have a great footprint when you look at the 39.9 billion, the 62% of people on users, and the hours that people are playing. You're going to get a lot of that on Chartboost. And then you can see there, the biggest thing that everyone's going after is spenders. Now you're looking to spend money to acquire users, but also too, the other side of that is that you want people to spend in your game. There's $49.3 million that are spent. So there's a lot of money out there. That is people who are spending greater than $25 a month in a game. So that's not even taking up the mom and pop people or the one-off purchases of $1.99 or $2.99. We're looking at people who spend $25 more a month. So that's a lot of money. Now, we're getting into impressions and ROI and really getting more into how do we target and optimize. There's a lot of money out there. There are a lot of users out there. So really we want to figure out how do we target and how do we acquire. So, really want to dig into, and there are things that you want to ask. So there are 3 questions that we want to look at. What are your goals? Really sitting around, what is your end game? What do you want to achieve? What is your measure of quality? What is success for you? And we'll talk a little bit about more on this when you look from the small indie developer to your large mid to larger publisher as well, because those goals are going to differentiate between the 3 just depending on where you are. The second question that you want to ask yourself is, what's your budget? Do we have a budget? Are we grassroots? Are we bootstrapped? Is our budget tied to other things? And we'll get into that a little bit. But that is the next question you want to ask yourself. What is your budget? Because you're not going to be able to acquire users and go out and push if you don't have an understanding of how much money you can spend. And we'll talk about having a budget and how to spend your budget wisely. And then lastly, where are you in your overall growth strategy? That's something you want to think about. Is this your first game? If it's your first game, then your strategy is going to be different than someone who has a second game, or if you have an established IP. Think of someone who has a couple of games or their second game in their suite. The great thing is, there are different ways you can look to promote your app. One of those things is cross-promotion. Chartboost has a cross-promotion platform that allows you to promote your apps within your other apps. So that's something that you can think about. So again, we're going to go through all 3 of these questions and really look to see where you are in the funnel and how you can target your users and how you go through your UA strategy depending on where you are. All right, so there were 3 pillars of UA, and the way I want to break that down is we have awareness, we have installs, and we have users. So this all kind of ties back to the 3 questions that I asked. And so when you look at awareness goes back to your budget. The question I asked you earlier is, where are you at? Are you bootstrapped? Do you have money? Do you have a budget? And the reason we ask that is because that's going to depend and drive how you go about awareness. If you're bootstrapped and you don't have a budget and you're a small indie developer, then you have to think of things like your social media platform. Are you using Facebook? Are you using Instagram? Are you using Snapchat? All these different channels to get awareness out to your users. If you're not a brand game, then are you going out and you're doing mass buying at scale? So again, tying back to your budget. It's again, what is your awareness? Who are you trying to get, and how are you targeting those users? And then we look next at the second pillar, installs. Again, everything ties back to your budget. How are you going about your installs? Again, if you're a new game, are you just trying to get to the top of the charts? Are you just trying to get downloads? Are you even thinking about retention? We'll get into that a little bit when we talk about users. But if you're a more established gaming company, are your goals to get to the top of the charts and that's it? Or are you looking to do more with your installs? And then last, users. We're not going to go through awareness and installs without the users. The users may be the 3rd pillar, but they're the most important pillar that we have here. They're very important to continued success. And the questions you want to ask yourself there are my users monetizing? And so again, this goes back to your budget, because if your app doesn't have any in-app purchases, or if it's not monetizing well, are you using that revenue to kind of tie back into your UA budget? These are things that you have to think about. This was a change from the early days when apps were really about just subscription-based or paid, where people weren't thinking about, are my users monetizing? Are they staying in the game? There's been a shift, and that's due to the market and kind of the way the industry has gone. And so we're not looking for those subscription-based. We move to that more freemium model. And so in-app purchases are a huge key. And so a lot of UA budgets from your mid to larger studios are tied into how much money people are spending in your game. And so if people aren't monetizing, then you don't have a budget. So all of these 3 keys really are tying into your strategy and going back to those 3 questions we asked earlier. Now let's talk about how we target. and really digging into how are we targeting for quality. And so when we look at things, there are a couple of things. You want to define your optimization goals. What are you looking at when you think about optimization goals? Are we looking at LTV? Are we looking at ROI? Are we looking at retention? Are you looking at ROIS or ROAS as people call it? So Yulia talked a little bit about return on ad spend, which is ROAS, which is very similar to ROI, which is return on investment. So these are the key terms that you want to think about. And again, everything ties back to those three questions. So when you're looking at your optimization, are you looking for lifetime value? Now, people are looking between D3 and D7 retention, but people are more moving to D2 and D3 retention because D7 is a little far out. You don't want to wait 7 days to see if someone's staying in your game. You want to know that at day 2 or day 3, so that way you can change your budget. And a lot of things go into your budget, depends on your users. Retention is great, but we're always looking for payers, and that's the biggest thing. And so when you think about it, when you look at lifetime value, acquisition, and retention, your biggest goal is how do you find quality users? And the great thing, if you think about it, Chartboost has some great targeting tools that really help answer these questions for our advertisers and really start going down that funnel of how do I find quality? I know my strategy, I got my installs, but now I want more quality installs. And so we're going to talk a little bit about one of our clients, Product Madness, who made a shift to quality. So they're one of those mid-core great casino publishers who are very branded. They have the Heart of Vegas app, and you guys can see the video running here, but they decided that they wanted to move away from acquiring users and really become more ROI focused. And so we were able to do that with this video here and really set them up for success with targeting. They wanted really to focus on about 40%. So what we did at Chartboost and part of the feature sets that we have is we pitched what we call our player targeting and our affinity targeting. And what those really do are, again, really shifting to find quality users on our network. So we set up these campaigns, and this is data from July and to the present, just on Android. And what you can see here is that we were able to double their installs. We were able to provide a 40% ROI or ROAS, return on ad spend, and that's still continuing to grow. And we've also doubled their installs, so you see 100% increase in installs. And how was all of that done? That was all done on Chartboost via our player group targeting and affinity targeting, which again is looking at retention and ROI data and really helping our UA clients find that value. And so with that being said, I would love to turn this over to Simon, who's going to talk a little bit about how do you measure and attribute these users and kind of figure out where you go from here.
Yep. Thanks, guys, for the introduction and for giving me the presenter role now. So indeed, we're going to focus on attribution because we're a Just, so we're an attribution provider for those of you who don't know us. 3 questions as well to keep in line with the rest of the presentation. So the first one is, why should you focus on accurate attribution? We're going to see what attribution is, why it matters, and how you guys can leverage this tool to have better users, better quality users, and work with your partners. Then when you have these quality users, and how one of the key metrics that you would want to focus on is how to track the ROI from your marketing campaign. So we're going to see how you can track your revenue, your spend, potentially your cost, and your spend, your user spend in your Just dashboard, and what you can do with that data, how you can tweak it, and yeah, what it means basically. And finally, just diving into an example for gaming companies, because I guess most of our audience is gaming based. So we're going to see what kind of events, what kind of metrics you really want to track and you really want to dive into when you are a gaming company. So first, why should you focus on attribution? So the main reason is that you want to leverage accurate attribution because you want to see where your users come from. So throughout your advertising campaigns, it makes you able to see where they're from, and if you're not basically running without any attribution, it would be as if you were flying blind. All of your data will be scattered across different ad networks, And you'll have basically no cohesive and impartial way to know which users come from which campaign, because you might be running with 5 or 6 different ad networks, and each network would report on these campaigns. With an attribution provider, you have just one dashboard where you can see the different campaigns and how they perform. Once you have this one central point where you see all your different campaigns, the one thing that you will want to do is obviously to compare them. So when you compare different marketing channels, when you know the origin of your users, right? So obviously you'll be running with different partners and across different inventories and with different types of campaigns. So you'll have CPI, so cost per install, CPA per action, some buzz campaign. Toya talked about cross promotion earlier. There's also email, retargeting, etc. So because you're using like an attribution provider, such as Adjust, you can see very easily in your Adjust dashboard which marketing channels work better according to your goals. So you will be able to see, like, if you have a campaign that is focused on user acquisition, you can see how many installs this campaign triggered. If you have like 2 or 3, you can just compare them within themselves. If you're more focused on on quality users, you can also see the spend or whatever event you want to optimize upon, tutorial, spend, purchase, etc. And you can see all of these different KPIs in the Adjust dashboard. So install sessions, purchase, in-app events, retention, etc. The third one will be to allocate your budget when you've seen the best performing channels. So that now that you have access to basically the outline of your marketing channels, you can adjust your budget towards the campaigns that are working best for your apps and that are most aligned with your goals. Obviously, it goes without saying that spending a budget on your highest performing campaigns will help you increase the marketing ROI and to help with your growth goals. Next slide is just how it looks on the Adjust dashboard. So you can see it's a very just a snapshot of the dashboard. I toyed with it so that it looks like it just has a few metrics. So you see installs, revenue, tutorial, and then you have the number of events for purchase 100 coins, the revenue that was triggered, that's associated with these events, and then the same for 500 coins. What you see here means that you have the different marketing channels, so network I, F, C, etc., and the organics. It's sorted by install. You can sort it by anything. So that means if you're interested in only the revenue, you can sort to see like the channel that drove the most revenue for you. And you will also see per default, if the really default view of the dashboard, you have the clicks, the impressions, the sessions, the attribution, conversion rate, click-through rate, etc. And this view, for example, if you have like, let's say, UA campaigns and quality or spend and purchase specific campaigns, you can save different views so that when you log back into your dashboard, you can see these different campaigns. You can see the tabs on top where you have fraud prevention, cost, cohort, etc. You could have like a UA specific, so you have weekly UA report, for example, and you create that and you can go directly there, or purchase, and you can go directly to that view, which is adjusted to your specific campaigns. Next slide will show on some other advantages. So the best is you have one SDK to work with all networks, such as Bidalgo and Chartboost. That's one of the benefits of working with us, is that you can track your UA performances and you only need to integrate one Adjust SDK. If you want to run with several networks, you can simply integrate the Adjust SDK and we'll take care of sending data to your network partners, of tracking the installs, the events, etc. You don't need to set up different events for different partners. For example, just one event, and we'll just spread that event around to whichever partner you want. Also, obviously, all analytics are provided by Adjust. So as we take care of everything, all the analysis of the campaigns, you can maintain your own BI and you can receive data via callbacks as well. But you can just use our cohort system or cost system or deliverables, etc., to make sense of what's happening with your optimization campaigns. That also holds true for ad networks. So we can also share the data with networks, and the fact that we provide the analytics is also helpful because they can focus on optimizing your campaigns. When we send callbacks to networks. They focus on campaigning and making sure that you get the most out of your ad budget. It's one of the features that we provide, and that's what we work with Bidalgo and Chartboost, so that we can take care of this part of the whole acquisition process. Using Adjust also means that you have only one tracking tool and that we duplicate everything. So there's no install that's counted twice, or that no user that's attributed to 2 different marketing channels. Everything, like having a unique attribution per user, you only pay the marketing channel that actually drove the conversion. And as an added bonus, we also handle all the heavy lifting for deep linking, attribution callbacks, and which attribution callbacks is something that is very useful for referral campaigns, for example, or cross promotion as well. You can leverage it, cohort, etc. The ROI for marketing campaigns. So the first thing you want to do is you want to set up event tracking. That will help you know exactly what your users are doing in your app and where they interact and where their potential drop-off point is, so that you can retarget them down the line. The idea with event tracking is that you basically set up something like level up, and we'll see a few examples later on, but level up, etc., a purchase, so that you know what your users are doing in your app. When you set up event tracking, you'll definitely want to track revenue for purchase, obviously. And this will tie nicely with the cost data that we can also provide, so that you can see the spend and you can see how much your users spent in your app, and you can calculate your ROI per different marketing channels. So if you look at the next slide, which is not there yet, but here it goes, this is the cohort view. So here it's fairly straightforward. You see it's the retention rate. So you have several KPIs per day. So you have 0 day, you have the retention rate, the session per user, and the revenue per user. If you look at the retention rate on day 0, it's 100%, obviously, because these are all the users that opened the app on the day they installed, which is everyone. On day 1, for organic, you have 37.47% of users that have returned, and you see that they've triggered 2.67 sessions and spent 15 cents in average. So obviously you can choose different KPIs, and you can basically see the performance of your marketing channels according to cohorted data. So it's not just deliverables, it's everything down the funnel as well. And if we take a concrete example, we have for gaming companies. So on our side, there's literally no restriction to what type of events you can track or you want to track, but there are a few guidelines that are always good to know. For example, when you're a gaming company, you will want to track tutorial, registration, login, level up, level complete. I mean, it's all on the slide, right? And in-app purchase, obviously. All of these events, you can track more than that, but especially since they're completely customizable on Adjust, it goes with just one click to create these events, and they're also free of charge. So you can track anything that you want. You can have several purchase events, one for 10 gold coins, one for 15, one for 50. And but these 10 that, or however many on the next slide, not on the one before, are the best possible events that you could pick, or at least the basics. I go back to this one slide here because that also ties in nicely here, because we see the purchase events, 100 gold coins and then 500 gold coins, and these are exactly the types of event that you want to know. Tutorial as well, so that then you know if a user finished or completed the tutorial and then bought for 100 gold coins but never did 500, or just bought once for 100 gold coins or twice, you might want to retarget them because you're like, hey, they're engaged enough and they did spend money in it, so this seems to have some quality to it. So maybe if they dropped off, I could just go and target them again and to have them being re-engaged into the app. So this, all the features of offer and that you can see in the Adjust platform. And when you work with Bidalgo or Chartboost, this helps them nicely and see how you can basically improve your marketing spend and your campaigns. I'm going to stop right there and go on to the next slide where we're going to take some questions if you have any.
Great. So thanks very much, Julia, Toya, and Simon. Now I'm going to open it up for questions from you guys. So we've received a number of questions, and I think we have like between 5 and 10 minutes. So I'll start with a question for Bidalgo, and then Julia in this case is gonna answer your questions. So the first question we have was, Julia, where do you see better performance with campaigns which run on the algo or manually? Maybe you can share your insights to the person that asked that question.
Thank you, Fabian. Well, this is actually a very good question. We have our own performance team here. They're doing a full service and they run campaigns manually. But most of our SaaS clients, they use algo 90% of the time, or not actually 90% more. They use it for 90% of their campaigns, and it generates great results for them. But what we see, it's actually a combination of the both. It's not one or the other that's preferred. The algo is driving the performance and better results, but the human behind it puts the time, strategizes, and optimizes the input into the algo so that it delivers better work. In fact, we even have like an internal unofficial competition between the full managed service team and the algo, similar like maybe you've seen in the industry, the chess player Garry Kasparov was playing against the computer. So we have the same competition internally, see like how the human can get better than the SaaS, but usually it's a combination of the both that delivers the best results for our clients.
Great, thanks for the comprehensive answer. I hope that that helped you guys. Next question I had here was for Toya from Chartboost. Toya, the question is, if you have a smaller budget, is it really valuable to invest that budget in high quality users, knowing it's more of my small budget, right? Because it's a bigger percentage or bigger share of that small budget that you have available.
No, that's a great question, and probably one of the things that a lot of indie developers don't do enough or think about. But yeah, no, so if you have a smaller budget, I would say that it really comes down to the question of what are your goals? If you think that going after these high quality users who you think are going to turn into payers, but also you know, return to your game, so you know, keeping your DAUs, your daily active users up, then I say go for it. But realistically, if you're a smaller studio, what you really want to do is get awareness and get eyeballs out there. Start getting users, and then you know, use Adjust to be able to look at your user funnel and be able to see, am I getting payers? Where maybe am I losing someone? You know, from event tutorial to level 1 to level 2, getting that insight and being able to dig into that will then maybe give you a place to add in in-app purchases so you can start getting revenue. So if you're monetizing your app really well as a small indie developer, then I think yes, you should start going for more quality users. But if you don't have that revenue strategy just yet, I would say let's get some eyeballs and then work on getting quality users once you get a better idea of where that funding is going to come from in the long term.
Great, thanks, Toya. I think that's a very good piece of advice for everybody out there trying to monetize their games and managing their budget. The next question I had was for Simon from Adjust. So the question is, Simon, can we pass a user ID or a content ID to our events that we're tracking in Adjust?
The answer is yes, we can. So yeah, basically, I mean, I really talked about events on the surface only, but we have the possibility to pass, I mean, you have through the Adjust SDK the possibility to attach any kind of metadata to your event. So let's say if it's a login event, you can pass the user ID, and if it's some kind of in-app purchase, you obviously can pass the revenue. But if it's, I don't know, level 5 completed, you can, or level completed, you can pass the level number. So you can just have one event that is called level completed, and then at the end, as a partner parameter, as a callback parameter, that's what we call like metadata, you can pass the level, so say 5, 6, 7, 8. And we actually have an integration with Chartboost on that, where you can leverage that metadata to, it's very like gaming oriented for better optimization and segmentation. So that is something that is completely possible, and it's not just for gaming, it's for any kind of apps where you can attach some data that is very unique to that user for that event on an event per event basis. So yes, the answer is yes, you can.
Perfect. Thanks, Simon. Next question I had, I'm not 100% sure who this goes out to, but I think we'll try with Julia. So the question was, what is a good size for lookalike audiences? Maybe, Julia, you can share some of your experiences.
A good size for the lookalike audiences. I think it really depends where you are on your game. Can you clarify in terms of the size what they mean in terms of budget, or?
Yeah, so that wasn't specified.
What do they
so
mean?
like, what is that I don't know. So what is a good size for a lookalike audience if you're trying to acquire new users?
I mean, the more information you have about your users, the better. So obviously, if you start with a bigger index size of data, you have much better match with Facebook, right? So if you have the minimum, you might have to grow it for some time and spend some time to develop that asset internally. But it's usually the bigger the better. So I need to know exactly if you're asking about the budget or some other metric.
Cool. I think that's a great starting point. Looking at lookalike audiences and how to use them successfully. The last question I would like to ask goes out to Toya, and that would be, what are some of the best cohorts or segments to target when thinking about the game audience? I think that's a very, very relevant question for everybody out there.
No, that is a great question and very relevant, especially in the space now as everyone is getting really, really CPI constrained and budget constrained. And so it depends on who you're using. So at Chartboost, we have two different types of user segments and funnels that we're able to do to get you the high quality users. And I mentioned them a little bit and talked about in the Product Madness example. We have what we call player group targeting. And so what that does is really looking at players based on categories or genres that we've created here at Chartboost. So we've done our own taxonomy, and so we're a little more expansive than you get on the App Store and the Google Play Store, where we have subgenres and things like that. So you're able to target users who are engaged based on information on the back end that we're collecting. And then we have affinity targeting, which is our version of lookalike targeting that Facebook has, and so what we're doing on the back end is really, using machine learning. I know everyone loves that term, to build out segments that again are dynamically updated that really have helped our users go for quality and ROI-based users. Again, it depends on your platform, but everyone should have the ability to segment and target. I mean, that's even going down to whitelisting certain publisher sites that are doing well for you.
Great, Toya. Thanks so much for answering that last question that we had here on today's webinar. For those of you who would like to get more information on webinars, just go to our website, adjust.com, then select Learn, and there you'll find webinars from the past that are recorded, all geared towards making you a better marketer, of course. And I wanted to say a special thanks to our partners today. So Julia from Bidalgo, thanks very much for your insights and your presentation. Same, of course, thanks to you, Toya, from Chartboost. I think it was great actionable insights that you delivered this morning. We know it was early for you guys, especially on the West Coast, but we'll make sure to also share the presentation, so the slides, and the recording for you if you wanted to send it to your colleagues, rewatch it, or share the knowledge that you've acquired this morning. So thanks again for all the great questions also, and we hope to see you again on one of the Adjust webinars. Here you also have, again, the faces of the people that presented today. If you would like to contact them, I think they would definitely not mind if you did that. So thanks very much again, and have a great start into your day. Thanks, and take care.